fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren. Mr. Joe, Smoker Joe Goldberg is here.
I'm in the house. You won't give up on the smoker thing. I haven't pulled the trigger yet on the new one, but I'm getting closer. There's a sale going on. It's just tempting me.
Yeah, of course.
But I can keep my old one. Just keep going. It works just fine.
How could you turn down a sale? You're Jewish. Right?
I know. It's a need, not a want. And the internet keeps telling me on all my social media, the ads keep popping up everywhere I go about I should buy this thing. So they must know more than I do. Them.
They do. I send them all the information. They pay me for it.
Yeah. That's why everybody should go out and buy Michael's book, because the internet will tell everybody to buy Michael's book. Yeah,
that's what we're all about here. Well, today we've got Michael here. Who have we got? Michael McGarrity. And his new book is called Night in the City. It's a novel. So thank you for being here, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
Oh, you're welcome. So, Michael, where did the story of Night in the City come from for you?
It came out of my own personal experience. When I was a teenager, when I was 14, I was moved to New York City, where I lived for the next 4 years. And so I came out of a country environment, wound up in New York City, living in Manhattan, first on East 96th Street, and later over in Yorkville. And I had quite an interesting 4 years living there. I wound up doing some juvenile acting and singing and off-Broadway work and a little television work. And I actually wound up graduating from the Professional Children's School, where a lot of very, very renowned dancers and musicians and actors and even athletes went. So that was a real learning experience for me. In fact, I'm a distinguished alumni of that school. So I was able to draw on actually living in the city for those formative years of my life, where I was experimenting with a lot of different things that I wanted to do, wanted to see if I could do. So that gave me the environment that I could draw on, which I hope comes alive in the narrative. I think it does. And from there, it was just a question of me as a writer, as a novelist, breaking new ground. I had started out writing crime novels, of which there are 14, which I then voluntarily ended. But on an interim basis, I wrote a prequel that was well received, a Western trilogy that covers over 400 years of history in the Southwest. So I did the trilogy, I did the crime novels, I stepped back and I did a spin-off set completely out of my home environment in Montana, although the California stuff was quite real because I lived there in the 60s during that time frame. When that was all said and done, I said, okay, what's next? And I'd always been drawn to noir writings and noir films. And I thought, well, give it a go, see what you can do. So again, pushing the limits, seeing how far I can take it as a writer, trying to avoid being locked into a genre, seeing if I can do some exploration as a writer that would take me someplace new. And so that's how Night in the City was born. And actually, with every book that I've ever written, it doesn't matter what my proposal has been to my publisher, it's always changed. Because the story takes over on its own, and I just have to go with it.
So what's the premise of the book? Let's talk about the basic storyline so listeners know what goes on in the story.
All right, let's talk a little bit first about noir, because there are some qualities that I think are necessary in order to have a book be in that genre. First, you have to have a dark side to some characters. In Night in the City, that's taken over by a femme fatale who basically is off stage for the entire book. But it's her history that unravels who she is and what she does. Then you've got to have a protagonist who isn't totally put together the right way. And in Sam's case, my protagonist's case, he's impulsive. And he's a little bit different insofar as he's not hard-boiled. I like to call him parboiled, because he can be a gentleman. He doesn't like guns, even though he's a decorated war veteran, and he has a tendency to go off. So there's that element to it, which I think makes it noir, along with a cast of questionable bad guys, or maybe not so bad guys, or just questionable people who are capable of doing dirty things. So we've got bad cops. We've got a corrupt police force. We've got the 1950s families involved, the mafia. We have Sam being harassed and beaten by a cop who feels that he took away from him, Sam took away from him, his attempt to become a detective with the NYPD. So there are all that element that's surrounded, as well as the landscape, Manhattan in the 50s. There's Spanish Harlem, a place of mean streets. There's Morningside Heights. There's City College. There's Columbia. There's downtown in the Tenderloin. There's Little Italy. All of those things in the 50s were incredibly vibrant in some ways, still ethnic communities. I have Sam, for example, living in Yorkville, where I lived. And Yorkville, post-World War II, was still a community predominantly of German Americans who had settled there. And there was residual views that grew out of their support of Hitlerism and Nazism prior to World War II that were still prevalent in that community in bits and pieces. So all of those things combine to create an environment that I think puts Night in the City clearly in the noir category.
So, Michael, you have your Western writing and your other books, and you changed to noir as you just described. So I'm interested in wondering if you had Sam as a character first, if you had the story first. You obviously thought it was going to be in New York, so I'm trying to figure out what came first, the character or the story.
Yeah, it's very strange. I'm sort of a weird guy when it comes to writing books. The first thing I have to have is a working title. I have to have a working title. And with every but one book, my working title has become the final title in the story. So Night in the City was just a title that appealed to me, and I wanted to use it. The second thing I need as a writer is I need a locale. And I have to have a locale that I know, that is real to me, so that I can make sure that it's going to be real to the reader. And then the third thing I need is a jumping off point, a launch pad, if you will. And in this case, the launch pad was, this is a man, Sam is a man who has had his heart broken by this beautiful, rich New York society girl, with the clear understanding going into the relationship that it was never supposed to go anywhere except where it was. It was only supposed to be a love affair. Well, he fell for her. And as a consequence, he lost her. And so that's the takeoff point. That really is what brings this book to life, the beginning. And from there, it just unravels. Who is this woman? What do we know about her? What are we going to find out about her? Why was she killed? Because indeed she was killed. And he found her body and immediately became the prime suspect in the murder case. So that was my launch pad. And from there, it just took off and, in a way, had a life of its own. My editor, who's a total sweetheart, kind of laughs at me when I do put in a book proposal because she knows right from the get-go that things are going to change. And hopefully they always change for the better. So I call Sam parboiled, not hard-boiled, because he's a true good guy underneath his impulsiveness, underneath his risky business that he takes on. Underneath all of that is an attempt to clear himself and to restore his name so that he can get on with his career. Throw in another femme fatale, a mysterious PI, a woman who's for some reason unknown to Sam, is willing to take him on and become his cohort in trying to solve the crime. So there's that element, which is really terribly interesting too. So you put that all together, you've got one narrative voice throughout the story until you get to the denouement, and I was off to the races.
Any particular reason now Sam is a assistant district attorney and had Korean War vet history. Any particular reason that your character has that?
I just thought that it made sense for him to have a background of having proven himself in an entirely different environment. The fact that he becomes an ADA, I think, is sort of a place where he can grow from, where he wants to go. I mean, one of the things that I did with this story is I make him a struggling guy coming out of the war, working as a store detective at Best & Company, which most people don't even know existed. A beautiful store that I describe in detail because it was quite a lovely place, a department store, and he's trying to build a life for himself. The other element of him is his backstory of being a loner. I mean, it's right there. One of the things that I do with backstory that I think is a neat way to go about it is you learn about Sam in bits and pieces. You learn about his personal history in bits and pieces. And I do it that way because I think that's the way most of us reveal ourselves to other people. We don't just sit down and say, here, I'm going to give you my life story. Instead, as we get to know people, we get to learn more about them. I think the same should be true with a fictional character like Sam. So he's a loner. He's lost his parents. He has no siblings. He's been through a war. He's trying to build a life for himself. He's fallen in love and has his heart broken. And I think it makes him a very appealing character. So that was how he was developed. And I like him a lot. In fact, I'm already hearing from people that have read the book in advance, is it going to be a series? Are you going to bring this guy back? And the answer is no. This is a true and total standalone. This is it for my attempt to do crime noir.
Usually there's a series. People like those series. They want those characters. That's the key. So I keep going back to the character. What happened to Sam? What was his arc, his change from being this loner guy at the beginning, going through all this to the end? What happens to him change-wise in that arc? What does he learn about himself, I guess?
He fell in love. That's what changed him. I mean, that's what this story is, a love story in that regard. This is a guy who got involved sort of on a contractual basis with a woman who was totally out of control sexually and went into it eyes wide open. This is what it is. When it's over, it's over. I'm faithful to one man at a time, she tells him. That's who I am. That's what I am. And he buys it. And he finds himself opening up to her in ways that he had never opened up before with anybody else. And so when it comes time for her to put the kibosh on the relationship, he's devastated. It just wipes him out. And so he tries to get on with his life and does a fairly sizable, good job of that, going ahead and becoming a lawyer and working for the district attorney as a junior ADA. And all of a sudden she reappears out of the blue for no other reason that he can figure out what does she want? What does she want from me? And wants to meet him at their old watering hole, where they would go and smooth before spending a night together, either in her penthouse apartment or in his little Yorkville apartment. That's the way Sam begins to unfold as a character, that he had been given this opportunity to love this woman. She had taken it away from him very deliberately, and it wound up turning into her murder that he felt compelled to solve because of two reasons. One, he wanted to know who she really was, and two, he knew that he was the prime suspect and that the cops would land on him full force if he didn't get out there and work the case himself.
So your characters, how do you experience them Are you the type of writer that hears them, sees them? Do you have a picture in mind of who Sam would be, or is it just distant to you?
I don't know. I don't think I've really over-described him. He's sort of a guy of maybe average height, a little taller, good-looking in a way. I mean, not a star quality type of fellow, but someone that you would see on the street and maybe nod your head to and think there goes an interesting person. He's not your typical hard case. I think I've made that point already several times. As a matter of fact, he looks a little too easygoing until you get to know him. But he's got a sense of humor. He's got a quick wit. He's observant. He looks at things very clearly. And when he does mess up, he backtracks out of it and takes responsibility for it. So I think that makes him very interesting. In terms of trying to build him in a physical sense, I don't know whether I gave him a real strong characterization physically, but he's clear in my mind. And I think it's also good to let the reader draw their own picture of these characters. Like the police commissioner, for example, a wonderful character in the book, who is and isn't helpful in a way. The column writer for the Herald Tribune is another interesting character who brings Sam to the attention of the media in ways that are very positive. And then there's the crime mob within the NYPD that's pulling off these heists. And all of this is tangled together, and Sam is trying to pull it apart and figure it out because he's got a rogue count on his case. He's got officers and detectives he thinks he can trust, but maybe not. He's got a police commissioner who wants to clean house, but is he doing it for political reasons or to really clean up the department? And he's got a journalist, an opinion writer, an editorial guy who's building him up as a hero. So all these things are configured around Sam, and he still doesn't have an answer as to who might have killed this woman that he loved.
Why don't you tell us? That'd be nice.
Oh,
give us the answer. My question off of this book specifically, you've written other genres, and many authors and writers, including me, think about, explore, and dabble in other genres. What was easy and hard about bouncing around from westerns and crime and other things to where you are now? Or how'd you approach it?
It's all been hard. Nothing's been easy. But that's my pattern. I don't like easy. Easy doesn't appeal to me. I had a meeting with one of my publishers before I transitioned from an editor and an agent to another house and another agent. And he was a great guy. He published 11 of my books. And he had even proposed to Publishers Weekly in the year 2000 that I was going to be a breakout writer. Well, I didn't quite break out as big as they had hoped. And I met with this gentleman just when I was making the transition from his house, his publishing house, to another publishing house. And I said, what would you have done if I had broken out really as big as you thought I would? He said, and I like this guy. This guy is a fabulous guy. He went with me for 11 books. He said, I would want a book from you every year. I would want another Kevin Kearney book from you every year. And I looked at him and I said, I am so glad that didn't happen. Because if that had happened, that would have been the path that I would have been put on by my publisher, and for good reason, because they want writers to succeed so that they can make a profit, and so I can profit. But the fact that that didn't happen was really what saved my career as a writer, because I was able to step aside and say, I can now try to experiment in little different ways. And so that's what I did. If you look at Head Wounds, which is the end of the Kearney series, number 14, if you look at that book, it's about Mexican cartels. It's about murders. It's about remote Indians living on reservations in Mexico, the Kickapoos. It's about a killer who is so precise. You think to yourself, how could you ever like this guy, yet there's things about him you like? So it's been this evolution which I've been lucky to have, where I've been basically making my living as a writer since the day my debut novel came out. And I'm still doing it today, and I'm still doing it in a way that allows me a certain amount of flexibility and freedom to try new paths.
So what do you hope the reader takes away from this book? Is there a meaning or a subtext, or do you just have pure entertainment in this?
It's probably pure entertainment. It's probably just a really, really, really good ride. I think it's a fun story. I think it has a lovely, lovely arc to it. I think the mystery is strong. There's nothing given away. You're going to have to read the whole book to find out who did what to who. So I see it as my version of a really good crime noir film on the page. I've always been a fan of film noir, and I think it works quite nicely within that framework. And I'm just hoping that a reader will put the book down and say, I like that. I think I'm going to tell my friends about it. I may even read it again. So that's what I'm looking for with this story.
Do you have a favorite author besides Joe there? Like, yeah. Do you have a favorite author or something like that, or a writer, movie, or something like that kind of influences you some?
You know, I really don't have favorites, except I will say within the context of this book that I was influenced by James Ellroy. And I love Dutch Leonard, Elmore Leonard's work, both in the Western genre and in crime genre. Joseph Wamba, I always loved, and I could never read enough of either Dick Francis or Nero Wolfe. So if you take those writers who have written crime fiction, whether it's noir or post-noir, and put them all together, they've had an influence on me when it comes to storytelling. Crime fiction is something I know because of my background in criminal justice. I spent 25 years in the field working as a deputy sheriff, an investigator, for the public defender, running programs for the Department of Corrections, going into detention centers and taking them over after staff rebellions that shut the places down. So all of that, combined with what I was reading and my actual life experiences, are really what has fueled me and what has given me substance for the things that I write.
So how do you create your dialogue? Like, or do you sit in a room and work it out and say it out loud to make it sure it sounds real, or do you have some sort of system to make dialogue work in a book like this?
I started out and I wrote awful dialogue. It was stilted, it was forced, it was awful, and to the point that my wife came to me after reading some test pages while I was still struggling to see if I could even tell a story. And she said, you need to learn a little bit more about women if you're going to write about them. And I said, you're probably right. What's happened to me over the years is dialogue has gotten easier for me, because once the characters are formed and I know who they are, I can get a sense of how they're going to talk and what they're going to say and what kind of exchanges they're going to have. So I really think at this point in my career, dialogue is a strong point for me, because I can pretty well put a scene together where it's a very natural flow of talk between two people. I don't know if there's any other way to create dialogue. I certainly couldn't do it unless I had the characters and I knew them well enough that I would get a sense of how they would speak and how they would interact.
So now you've done this noir, are you going to be doing more in this area, or are you going to jump to something else?
I've already jumped.
Okay.
I'm working on one of the things that I do as a writer is I draw from my life experience. I think I've already talked about that by saying, well, this is what I've done, this is where I've lived, these are the things that I've accomplished in my life that I've been able to use to put together to create a story. I'm old now. I'm facing my 85th birthday this summer. And I've been with my wife we met in 1961 at the University of New Mexico. We haven't been married quite that long, but we're together. We've been together. It's been an absolute incredible romantic ride with this woman who's not only beautiful but talented herself. So what am I working on now? I'm writing a story about an old couple and what they're trying to do to adjust and react to a changing world and their own problems, physically and mentally, that they're going through. And I'm looking to do it as a novella rather than as a full novel. And so I'm having a lot of fun with that because I can bring in some social things and cultural things that are happening in the world of today and use them as part of the unfolding story, as part of the narrative. So that's next.
Well, fantastic. So do you have a website or you do social media? How do you like readers to find you and follow you? Or let's give out your information.
Well, I have a Facebook page. They can follow me on Facebook. That's usually my major approach to social media. I also have a website, www.michaelmcgarrity.com, which is pretty up to date. People can go there. They can see all of my books, all the covers. The neat thing about my body of work is it's all still in print. Nothing's out of print, so it's all available. It's available as audiobooks. It's available as Kindle, downloaded books, all of that. So those are the two primary ways that people can get information about me. My agent completely dishes me for this because she feels that I'm not doing enough with social media, and I ought to be podcasting or blogging or something, and I'd really rather not. So I guess I haven't done a good job of promoting myself, but you fellas are going to help me.
Well, there you go. That's what we do. Well,
that's what Hal does.
That's right. Well, I really appreciate you being here. Of course, the book, Night in the City, a novel, and our guest is the writer of that, Michael McGarrity. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
This has been a production of the House of Mystery Radio Show. To find out more about our show, guests, or hosts, go to our website at houseofmysteryradio.com.